Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's 6/6/16. Here are top stories.
Tonight, what's inside the billionaire bug-out bag? After that, how special interest groups are taking advantage of June 6th. And our reporters are shoved away outside of a migrant camp. That's next.
Speak English? No? Where y'all from? What country?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan?
Yeah.
When did y'all move here?
Germany, yeah, good, yeah.
Germany? You like it? Yeah, good. Yeah. What's up? What's wrong?
Right.
Okay.
To make interview all without permission, express permission.
Okay.
You need express permission before you do those.
Sure. Okay.
Hey, warum here?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Today we're going to talk about Brexit, Bilderberg, and a billionaire space race that's developing. Now, these are all related. We're going to be checking in with our reporters, Rob Dew and others who are at the Bilderberg conference in Europe. We're also going to be talking about the issues of Brexit as that day gets closer. And of course, the European Union that Britain is looking to exit from is a creature of Bilderberg. But where is world government going to go next? After they consolidate things on Earth, will they set up headquarters in outer space? I think there's a good case that can be made for that. So we're going to take a look at this new space race that's developing with billionaires. And this last weekend, the Drudge Report had an article that I think brought this to a head. What we're seeing here is a new Sputnik moment. And let me give you an idea of what's happening here. This is the commercialization of space, the privatization of space, and this is something that's going to be done presumably by a few billionaires. Maybe it'll be what they're talking about at Bilderberg in addition to the British exit. This article from the Wall Street Journal says U.S. set to approve a moon mission by a commercial space venture. Now, this is setting up a new I guess you could call it a precedent, working through the regulatory issues of allowing a private corporation to send something to the moon. They say U.S. officials appear poised to make history by approving the first private space mission to go beyond Earth's orbit, according to people familiar with the details. The government's endorsement would eliminate the largest regulatory hurdles to plans by a company called Moon Express, a relatively obscure space startup, to land roughly 20-pound package of scientific hardware on the moon sometime next year. And of course, these regulatory hurdles are going to present a greater chain than the gravity that holds this thing to the Earth. These people haven't really even perfected their technology yet or gotten very far with it, and yet they've got to clear these regulatory hurdles. Now, this is all part of a competition for Google's Lunar X Prize. It offers a first prize of $20 million to the first people that can land a package on the moon that will traverse its surface, transmit photos and videos back to the Earth. Now, it wasn't very long ago when that $20 million prize was only a fraction of what it would cost to get something to the moon. That is changing very rapidly. And at the same time we're seeing this happen, we have seen Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com have a conference last week at a Recode conference talking about technical issues, talking about, and of course the thing that usually made the biggest splash in the news was his comments about Trump via his paper, the Washington Post. But I thought the most interesting moment in it was when he talked about his plans for what he was going to do in space. And as I said, I think we have a Sputnik moment here. You remember 1957, Russia launches the first man-made artificial satellite. It created a panic in the United States. It created the beginning of the space race, 1957. For the next 12 years, there was a race to try to get to the moon first. The official story was we won in 1969. And yet, what happened? We had the federal government essentially stop at that point, shut down everything, destroy and dismantle all the rocket engines, took away the plans of that, and absolutely did nothing. Now, there was a generation of scientists and engineers, my generation, Jeff Bezos' generation. Our imagination had been caught by space exploration, by the possibilities of colonization, and we wanted to know what's going to happen next. And we're going to talk about where this is all headed. But first, I want to talk about the other people that are in this race. Of course, we've got Paul Allen, who was a partner in the startup of Google. Also, we have Richard Branson, who has Virgin Air. The two of them seem to be focused primarily, like many of these companies, on the business of launching satellites and doing some near-Earth space tourism. Then you have Elon Musk. Elon Musk is looking at this as kind of a Jor-El escape plan. He's openly talked about the many disruptive technologies that could destroy our Earth. Artificial intelligence that could get out of control, robots that could get out of control, natural catastrophes that could happen. And so he's looking to set up a colony on Mars. He's a bit of a romantic, if you will. He's looking for something to go and colonize another planet. Jeff Bezos, however, I think is much more calculating. He's looking at this not so much as the ultimate prepper move like Elon Musk is, like a billionaire's bug-out bag. That's essentially what these rockets are in Elon Musk's mind. And perhaps Jeff Bezos is looking at that as well, but I think he has some economic designs on this issue. And that's why I want to talk about space colonization and what we saw when I was in college, when he was in high school. Now, the space program that we had initially, of course, was run by the government. It was run with a Nazi scientist that they brought over with Operation Paperclip, Wernher von Braun and others. These were scientists who had created the V-2 rocket program to attack London. They brought them over to run our space program. Now, it was pretty predictable 40 years ago that the government wasn't going to do anything. The government had set up this goal of getting to the moon, and they said they got there, and now we don't have anything else to do, so let's just dismantle the program. And yet there was much that could have been done. But when we look at what Obama has done, this is the ultimate nadir, if you will, of the space program. When we had in 2010, his NASA administrator, Charles Bolden, said that when he became, and here's a quote, "When I became NASA administrator, Obama charged me with three things. One, he wanted me to help re-inspire children to want to get into space and math. He wanted me to expand our international relationships. And third, and perhaps foremost, Obama wanted me to find a way to reach out to the Muslim world and to engage much more with the dominantly Muslim nations to help them feel good about their historic contributions to science, math, and engineering." There you go. There's your participation trophy. And apparently that is now the mission of NASA, to hand out participation trophies to Muslims and to get children interested in going into science and math. No more space exploration. And that was very predictable. That was predictable 40 years ago. And let me just interject this. If you want to feel good about your culture, yes, the Muslims created algebra, but it was calculus and physics that was created by Isaac Newton, a Christian creationist, okay? So there's your participation trophy for you Christians. Now, those of us who are looking at this, and again, Jeff Bezos was a valedictorian of his class as an 18-year-old. He made it clear that he was already taking a look at this, and this is what he said he wanted to do when he grew up. He said he wanted to build space hotels, amusement parks, and colonies for 2 or 3 million people who would be in orbit. He said the whole idea is to preserve the Earth, he told the newspaper. The goal was to be able to evacuate humans. The planet would become a park. And that's essentially where he is now. And I'm going to play some clips from Jeff Bezos, and we're going to talk about his very different view of space versus Elon Musk, or some of the people who are looking at it as a near-term satellite business, or Elon Musk who's looking at it as a bug-out opportunity. He has what I believe is essentially the ultimate Agenda 21 design for the Earth. But before I do, let me back up to what gave me, this vision of space colonization. Gerard K. O'Neill wrote a book in the 1970s called High Frontier. Now, he was a physicist. He had created particle ring storage for nuclear tests. He had also created something called a mass driver. And if you look at this picture, this straight line right here that's running up this way, that's a picture, an artist's rendering of what a lunar manufacturing colony would look like. The mass driver is a way to launch material into space. They're going to create, his idea was to create very large cylinders. They called them O'Neill cylinders. These cylinders would be 5 miles in diameter, 20 miles long, and what they would do is connect the two counter-rotational so that they did not get any torque off of them. And we're going to talk about where these colonies would be located. That's very key to this. They wanted to get them close to the moon, because by using these mass drivers, they would not have to use expensive rocket launches from either the Earth or from the moon. They could just send it out with an electromagnetic railgun is essentially what this technology is. And you've seen that with the latest Navy railguns that we have out there. So they would just mine the material on the Earth, presumably free of EPA regulations until the EPA caught on. And then they would launch this finished material or raw material up to a special place in space. Now, what are these special places? They're called Lagrange libration points, and there you see a picture of a manufacturing colony in space. But let's go to the picture of the Lagrange libration points. Now, whenever you've got two planetary bodies, it could be, as we see in this image, it looks like you've got the sun in the center and the Earth on the side, or it could be the Earth in the center and the moon on the side. You get these 5 points that we have on this diagram here. Now, the key ones that are interesting as far as the space colonization are concerned are spots L1, let me get my weatherman thing here going, L1 and L2 over here. Those are close to the moon. And while they won't stay, objects that are put there won't stay there indefinitely like they will down at L5 and L4, anything that you put in those two areas, those are actually totally gravitationally neutral. They cancel out the forces from the two bodies at L4 and L5. But L1 and L2 are the ones that are most interesting for space colonization, for space manufacturing. Let's show the other picture here that shows how these things fall off. When you look at this and you look at that pit, that actually gives you an idea that there's a gravitational pull, that those balls are going to fall off there. So you have to expend energy to keep L2 and L1 in place. You don't have to spend any energy for L4 and L5. They'll stay in place. Now, the key thing is that when you start to do manufacturing in space, you can have access to infinite cold or infinite heat just by painting things black or white. Okay, you can absorb all the solar radiation without any interference from an atmosphere. And these massive cylinders that they're talking about, first they began talking about, well, let's do some spheres. They had Bernal spheres that were proposed by some scientists at Stanford. Those would be rotating to give you gravity, but it would only have full gravity at the equator. From there, they went to these kind of toroidal spheres. And we've seen this portrayed in the movies. In Elysium, they had a toroidal sphere that they put there. And of course, and there's a picture of the artist renderings. These are from the 1970s. And of course, these have inspired numerous science fiction movies. They've reproduced this very accurately in some of the latest movies. But the key, one of these space colonies, was the O'Neill cylinder, because that was so large. It was, as I pointed out before, 5 miles in diameter, 20 miles long. It had an atmosphere in it that would actually have weather. There would be some control over that weather, of course, but it would also have so much air in it that would provide protection from radiation. So this captured everybody's idea, imagination, saying we can do something really huge, very impressive. We can save the Earth, because remember, Earth Day had started not too long before that. And I think that's all reflected in Bezos calling his space company Blue Origin. Maybe he's just out to save the environment. Maybe he truly believes all this stuff. Or maybe he's like some of these other people who is using the idea of sustainable development as a way to lock us down, to keep us from doing anything. I want to go to some of the quotes that he had now from this interview that he had with the Recode conference. So first, Bezos sells us the idea of a sustainable Earth.
The way we will protect this planet is by going out into space. And you don't want to live in a retrograde world. You don't want to live on an Earth where we have to freeze population growth, reduce energy utilization. And by the way, it would be completely immoral of us to say, well, we'll just kind of freeze energy utilization where it is, because the other 7 billion people who are just now coming online to more energy usage, they're going to want what we have.
Notice that he says we could have to freeze a population, or we might have to starve you of energy. But I got a better idea. We'll let you live this prosperous life. We'll give you the energy and the manufactured goods, but we will manufacture them. We will go to the stars. You will stay here on Earth. What he's selling is Agenda 21, folks. Remember, Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century from the UN, has now been renamed Agenda 2030, a plan for sustainable development. This is his idea of sustainable development. And underlying that are a lot of Malthusian principles, saying that we would have to cover the entire world with solar panels if we continued to increase our energy usage at this rate. That's a bunch of nonsense, okay? We're going to have different forms of energy. We'd even have better solar panels if that was going to be the only form of energy that we're going to be allowed. But let's listen to what else he has to say, because this is even more sinister.
All of our heavy industry will be moved off planet, and Earth will be zoned residential and light industrial. And that just makes a lot of sense. You